In December 2010, V Magazine posted a short note about a young model it considered part of its own circle. Models.com followed with a memorial titled, "Gone Too Soon." His agent, Jason Canner, described him as a lovely kid, respected and loved by many. Then the attention thinned. That is the strange part of Charles Devoe's story. The people closest to the work knew he had crossed into serious territory. He had appeared in V Magazine, Vogue Japan, Arena Home Plus, Numero Home, and campaigns for Anne Klein. He had worked with Mario Testino and Steven Klein, with a Bruce Weber tribute arriving after his death. He had a business degree, a New York career built by choice, and momentum still moving when he paddled out at Rockaway Beach. He was 28. Before the fashion credits, before the editorials, before the accident that would become the most repeated fact about him, Charles Devoe had already made one structured choice about his future. In 2004, he graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder with a business degree. That detail can look small in a brief obituary. It belongs in the center of his story. A business degree is a practical credential. It points toward offices, management tracks, sales floors, finance departments, or the kind of conventional career that makes sense on paper. Devoe finished that path first. Then he moved to New York City and pursued modeling. No surviving long interview has him explaining the decision in his own words. That absence leaves no room for invented motivation. What remains is the sequence. College completed, New York chosen, modeling pursued. The order is enough. He had a credential that could have taken him somewhere predictable, and he chose the more uncertain route. The shift gave the decision a professional edge rather than a fantasy shape, and made the risk clearer. The choice also complicates the usual language around potential. Devoe had already moved past adolescence, family-managed ambition, and child performer mythology. He had reached adulthood, completed school, and then accepted the instability of castings, agency judgment, and project-based work. That kind of move requires a tolerance for uncertainty that is easy to miss when a model's life gets reduced to photographs. A business background may explain part of his professional steadiness, though the record does not allow a direct claim. The clearest point is simple enough. He entered modeling with the habits of someone who had already passed through a structured environment. He knew deadlines, he knew competition, he knew how long-term goals were built through smaller tasks that rarely look glamorous while they are happening. Fashion loves the myth of the accidental discovery. A person stands in a mall, crosses a street, works a summer job, and a scout supposedly changes everything in one glance. Devoe's known biography has a different shape. He arrived in New York as a college graduate in his early 20s, with enough direction to enter one of the most competitive image industries in the world. New York in 2004 was the right place for that ambition. Agencies, casting directors, magazine offices, stylists, and photographers were concentrated there. For a young model trying to move beyond local work, the city offered access and pressure at the same time. It could open doors, and it could reject someone quickly. His family ties led back to Philadelphia. Public accounts identify his parents as David and Laura Lane Devoe, and several reports connect him to Philadelphia before his New York years. Some memorial summaries place him in Society Hill, though the stronger record supports the broader Philadelphia connection rather than a detailed childhood portrait. The years after his move are quiet in the archive. That silence is normal. Early modeling careers are built through appointments, test shoots, castings, small bookings, and long days that leave little public trace. The visible record usually begins only after the work has already started to count. By 2008, the record becomes clearer. Devoe had spent several years turning a decision into a career. When the larger credits start appearing, they do not look like luck arriving out of nowhere. They look like groundwork finally becoming visible. That slow period should not be mistaken for absence. In modeling, the private years often contain the work that later looks sudden, learning how to move for different cameras, how to take correction without shrinking, how to arrive prepared, how to leave a room with people willing to book you again. Devoe's larger credits make more sense when those unseen years are allowed to exist as real work, not empty time. In September 2008, Devoe appeared in V-Man in an editorial called Dressing Up and Dressing Down, photographed by J.D. Ferguson. 2 months later, he appeared in Arena Home Plus in One's Real Life is Often the Life That One Does Not Lead, photographed by Steven Klein. Those 2 credits reveal the level he had reached by the end of that year. V Man gave him placement inside a men's fashion publication tied to the same editorial world as V Magazine. Arena Home Plus placed him in a more severe and experimental space. The magazine had a reputation for ambitious men's fashion imagery, where models had to carry mood and concept along with clothing. It differed from a simple catalog booking. The Steven Klein credit is especially strong. Klein's photography is controlled, intense, and visually demanding. His sets ask models to participate in an atmosphere rather than simply display garments. A model used in that kind of editorial has to understand body language, stillness, tension, and direction. Devoe's presence in that work shows that his industry value had moved beyond surface appeal. Male modeling also demanded a particular kind of humility. The work often placed men beside much more famous women, inside images where the female model carried the public recognition and the male model helped build the mood. A man could be essential to the photograph and still remain unnamed by most viewers. Devoe's early editorial record fits that reality. The work required presence without the guarantee of public fame. That may explain why his surviving archive feels uneven. Fashion insiders could recognize the significance of a Steven Klein editorial or a V-Man placement immediately. A general audience might see only another handsome face and another stylized spread. The distance between those 2 readings helps explain how this story became so thin. The quiet years before 2008 deserve attention for that reason. Photographers and editors at that level do not build a story around a model purely because he is handsome. Handsomeness is the entry fee in that world. Reliability, control, patience, and the ability to take direction separate working models from faces that disappear after a few tests. Devoe had earned enough trust to enter that room. People who later described him publicly also point toward a person who worked well inside, demanding settings. Out remembered him as warm and affable. Models.com described passion, wit, and kindness. Canner called him lovely. Those words can sound simple, but in fashion production they carry weight. Shoots are long, sets are crowded, the pressure is real. A person's temperament shows quickly. The descriptions line up across professional and personal spaces. They do not turn Devoe into a myth. They give him a human outline. He was liked by people who worked with him, and that reputation sat beside a resume that was becoming harder to ignore. In 2009, Devoe's career widened. Numero Homme published him in Splash for its spring-summer issue, photographed by Matthias Vriens McGrath. Numero Homme belonged to a European luxury fashion world with a distinct editorial identity. That booking moved him beyond a purely American frame. Then came V Magazine's May 2009 swimsuit issue, photographed by Mario Testino. The cast included Gisele Bündchen, Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell, Claudia Schiffer, Carolyn Murphy, Daria Werbowy, Natalia Vodianova, and several leading male models, including David Gandy and Noah Mills. Devoe was listed among them. The V Magazine credit also shows how fashion creates proximity without guaranteeing identity. A model can stand inside an image with global names, share the same photographer, the same stylistic world, the same editorial package, and still leave the shoot with a very different level of public recognition. The women in that issue had biographies the audience already knew. Devoe was still building the biography that would make a viewer stop and ask for his name. That placement carries more than a simple name drop. Testino was one of the defining fashion photographers of that period, with a visual language tied to Vogue, Vanity Fair, luxury campaigns, and celebrity culture. V Magazine was operating with real editorial force. A shoot with that cast carried editorial purpose. It was a concentrated display of fashion power in 2009. For a male model, the significance is specific. Male models rarely received the same public machinery that turned female models into household names. The top women could become global celebrities. Men could work at elite levels and remain known mainly inside fashion. Devoe's credit belongs to that second category. He stood inside a high-level fashion environment, even if the wider public never learned his name. September 2009 added another serious credit. Follow That Woman in Vogue Japan, photographed by Mikhail Jansen. That booking gave him a place within the global Vogue system, in a publication with its own editorial authority and visual point of view. 3 strong editorials across roughly 1 year show range. Numero Homme V Magazine and Vogue Japan each used a different visual language. Vriens, McGrath, Testino, and Jansen each asked for a different performance. Devoe could move across those settings, which is one of the clearest signs of a career expanding rather than narrowing. Some secondary fashion archives also place him in a Stefanel Fall-Winter 2007 campaign connected to Gisele Bündchen. The surviving primary material for that campaign is incomplete, so it works better as context than as the foundation of the argument. The documented V Magazine credit with Testino already establishes the level of company he had entered. By the end of 2009, Devoe's archive no longer looked like scattered promise. It looked like a pattern. The word supermodel works for a title because it signals the world the story belongs to, but his documented status needs precision. Devoe's record stands above aspiring model and below household name supermodel. He was a high-level working male model whose archive shows clear ascent. That scale gives the work its proper weight without making his fame larger than the evidence allows. Devoe lived in Astoria, Queens, across the East River from Manhattan. For a working model, Astoria made sense. It was close enough to the city's studios and castings, while still feeling like a real neighborhood rather than a fashion staging area. After the accident, a manager from his apartment complex said everyone loved him around there. The line is brief, but it fits with the professional descriptions that came from fashion outlets and his agent. The person remembered in the neighborhood sounds like the same person remembered on set, easy to like, grounded, and kind. Astoria also gives the story a useful sense of scale. His professional life moved through glossy rooms, studios, fashion offices, campaign sets, magazine credits. His private life sat in a Queens neighborhood where people saw him in ordinary ways. That contrast should stay plain, without turning him into a symbol. It simply reminds us that the public image was only one part of a working life. His parents also described a long-standing interest in physically demanding sports. They named snowboarding, trick bicycling, and surfing. Those details are important because they keep the Rockaway accident from being framed as a random stunt by someone chasing danger. He had a history of activities that required balance, repetition, and comfort with risk. Surfing belonged to that pattern. By 2010, his career had moved into a new phase. Models.com lists him in Anne Klein's Spring-Summer 2010 campaign, photographed by Camilla Akrons alongside Carolyn Murphy. The same archive lists him in Anne Klein's Fall-Winter 2010 campaign with Karolina Kurkova. Those were commercial bookings with established names attached, and they show that his editorial momentum had begun turning into campaign work. Other 2010 credits include Buffalo by David Bitton, Dillard's Winter 2010, and a video project for Interview directed by Joe Lally. The range is important: campaign work, magazine work, and moving image fashion content. He was being used in multiple formats. Several obituary-era reports also connect him to Dolce & Gabbana and Abercrombie and Fitch. Those credits appear consistently in death coverage, though the accessible campaign pages are thinner than the documented Models.com entries for Anne Klein, V Magazine, Vogue Japan, Numero Homme, and Arena Home Plus. The stronger record comes from the archived work that can still be checked directly, while those brand names remain part of the contemporary reporting around his career. The Bruce Weber connection appears most clearly after Devoe's death. In January 2011, Models.com published a sole artist management tribute photographed by Weber, whose name had long been tied to the kind of American fashion imagery that shaped male modeling for years. Even as a memorial, the project shows the level of people around Devoe's career. By 2010, the work had started to spread across campaigns, magazines, and fashion video. He had moved from editorial promise into paid commercial visibility. November did not arrive at a quiet point in his career. It arrived while the bookings were still coming. Rockaway Beach sits along the southern edge of Queens, on the Atlantic side of New York City. It has a long surf culture, and the area near Beach 92nd Street is part of that history. In November, the crowds are gone and the water is cold. The people who paddle out then usually know what they are doing. On November 12, 2010, around 4 in the afternoon, Devoe was surfing near Beach 92nd Street and Shorefront Parkway. His ankle leash, the cord connecting a surfer to the board, became caught on a wooden pole from old jetty infrastructure beneath the water. That detail carries the weight of the accident. The leash exists for safety and control. It keeps the board from being swept away, which protects both the surfer and other people in the water. In this case, the same cord became the thing that held him underwater. A leash entanglement is especially dangerous because it turns a familiar safety device into a restraint. In normal use, the surfer can reach the ankle cuff and release it. Underwater, with waves moving the board and the body pulled at an awkward angle, that simple action can become almost impossible. Reporting from the time describes several people trying to reach him before the divers completed the rescue, which shows how quickly a routine session became a rescue operation. The old wooden remnants at Rockaway were known among surfers. Later coverage described them by the local nickname Death Sticks, a blunt name for submerged wooden stumps left from earlier coastal structures. The phrase sounds harsh, yet it came from people who knew the beach and understood the danger. Those remnants could injure surfers, catch leashes, and become nearly invisible hazards once the water moved over them. Firefighters and divers responded. An off-duty firefighter and other surfers tried to help before the official rescue was complete. FDNY divers eventually cut Devoe free. He had been underwater for several minutes. He was first taken to Peninsula Hospital, then transferred to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in Manhattan. The facts of the accident do not need dramatic weather or invented suspense. The available reports do not identify a storm as the cause. The force of the story is simpler and more painful. An experienced athletic man went surfing at a known New York break, and a submerged structure trapped the equipment meant to keep him connected to his board. There is no reason to frame the accident as recklessness. The record supports a cleaner point. Devoe loved physically demanding sports. Rockaway had known underwater hazards, and on that Friday afternoon, one of those hazards caught his leash. The submerged remnants, the rescue, and the later removal of the hazards can all be stated plainly. The available record shows a dangerous condition and a fatal entanglement. It does not establish negligence by a specific person or organization. The facts carry enough force without sharpening them into accusation or spectacle. The clearest version is also the most respectful one: a surf session, a hidden obstruction, a rescue, and a life altered in minutes. Devoe survived the initial rescue. That fact changes the emotional shape of the story. His life continued beyond the beach. He entered a coma after the near drowning and remained hospitalized for more than a month. His parents came from Philadelphia and stayed close as doctors monitored him. Public reports give only a few details, and those details are enough. They waded through the uncertainty, followed the medical updates, and were with him at the end. The restraint in that record makes the period feel heavier because so much of it belonged only to his family. During those weeks, there were signs that gave people hope. A manager from his Astoria apartment complex later relayed that his brain swelling had gone down, that his lungs and kidneys were responding, and that he seemed to respond to his parents. Those details came secondhand through a neighbor speaking about what the family had shared. They should be treated gently. They were fragments, not formal medical statements. They were fragments of hope moving through the people around him. 35 days is long enough for the outside world to keep going. Fashion schedules do not pause easily. Magazines continue production. Campaigns keep moving. Castings go on. While the industry worked, Devoe's family waited in a hospital measuring change in small signs. On Friday, December 17, 2010, Charles Devoe died. He was 28. Gothamist reported that his parents were with him at the end. New York medical authorities later tied the cause to anoxic ischemic encephalopathy from a near drowning, meaning brain injury caused by lack of oxygen and blood flow after the accident. The medical finding tied his death directly to the near drowning at Rockaway Beach. It closed off the need for speculation. The accident had deprived his brain of oxygen, and the damage from that day continued long after he was pulled from the water. The timing made the loss sharper. Anne Klein, Buffalo, Dillard's, and Interview all belonged to that same active stretch. His career had not gone quiet before the accident. He was still booking work, still appearing in campaigns, still moving through the industry he had spent years trying to enter. By December, the man who had arrived in New York after college, built through years of unglamorous effort, and finally reached a stronger level of visibility was gone. The fashion response after his death was real. V magazine said it was shocked and saddened and described him as part of the V family. Models.com published Gone Too Soon. Out wrote about him with warmth. Canner's public tribute described a person respected and loved by many. Those statements count because they came from people and institutions connected to the work. They were professional tributes rather than distant fan captions. They came from inside the professional environment where Devoe had spent 6 years building a name. The credits support the emotion in those tributes. Steven Klein photographed him for Arena Home Plus. Mario Testino photographed him for V Magazine. Mikhail Jansen photographed him for Vogue Japan. Camilla Akrans photographed him for Anne Klein. Bruce Weber later made a memorial portrait. These are serious names. They do not prove celebrity. They prove professional access. The scale of his career needs precision. Devoe belonged to the upper tier of working male models, with credits that placed him in serious fashion spaces. Mainstream celebrity had never caught up to him, the way it had for the most famous female supermodels. His record points to a different kind of success: respected editorial work, visible campaigns, and a career still expanding when he died. The lack of public memory around him points to a larger pattern. Male models in the 2000s often worked in prestigious magazines and campaigns without becoming widely known outside fashion. Even at the top, the pay gap was stark. Forbes later estimated that the highest-paid male model in 2013 earned a fraction of what Gisele Bündchen earned that year. The imbalance also shaped attention, profiles, covers, interviews, and long-term memory. Devoe's story sits inside that imbalance. His image circulated, his credits were recorded. The industry mourned him briefly. Then the record thinned. No single cruel decision had to erase him. The system was better at using male models than preserving their stories. The archive supports saying that his later public memory is thin. It supports saying that major outlets left no large retrospective record around him. It gives no basis for accusing named editors, agencies, or magazines of neglect. The stronger point is structural. A system built to keep producing new images often fails to preserve the full lives of the people inside them. This is the part that remains uncomfortable. A person can work with major photographers, appear in major magazines, book campaigns, be liked by colleagues, and still leave behind only scattered traces after death. In fashion, visibility and remembrance are separate things. Years later, Rockaway's dangerous wooden remnants were removed after pressure from surfers and concern over injuries. The beach remained a surf spot. People still paddle out near Beach 92nd Street when the season turns cold and the summer crowds leave. What remains harder to clear is the gap around Charles Devoe's story. The archive still holds enough to see him. A business degree from Colorado, a move to New York in 2004, years of quiet groundwork. V-Man Arena Home Plus, Numero Home, V Magazine, Vogue Japan, Anne Klein, Buffalo, Dillard's, Interview, Testino, Klein, Jansen, and a Bruce Weber memorial. The pieces are scattered, but they point to a career that had moved from possibility into evidence. Devoe's life should not be reduced to the accident, even if Rockaway is the reason many people encounter his name now. He had made a deliberate choice, stayed with it, and reached rooms that most models never enter. His work was strong enough for the industry to mourn him, and clear enough to remain traceable more than a decade later. Charles Devoe was 28 years old. He was educated, disciplined, athletic, and remembered by people who worked with him as kind. He belonged to a generation of male models whose faces could appear across fashion while their names stayed strangely quiet outside it. The images remain. The credits remain. The person deserves more than a footnote attached to a tragic headline. He moved to New York with a degree in hand and a professional risk in front of him. For 6 years, he kept making that risk pay off. Then Rockaway took the rest of the story.